My name is Mara Shorr. I am one of the partners here at Shorr Solutions, and we are co-hosting this webinar today with our amazing friends over at Weave. As you can see, I am not alone on this webinar today, and the amazingly lovable gentleman that you see here that looks suspiciously like me, right down to the eyebrows, that's where I get them from, is Jay Shorr. Jay is not only our founding partner here at Shorr Solutions, but Jay is my dad. So yes, we are going to do this together. And one of the topics that quite honestly we have seen again and again and again over the past 2 years is, the question we get is working from home and how do we track our team, right? What's good, what's bad about it, what is possible? Thanks to technology, things are so much different than they ever were before. So, Jay, are you ready to kick things off this morning / afternoon? Are we ready to go?
Well, formally on the East Coast, it is formally afternoon. And yes, I am as ready as I can ever be.
Perfect. Well, Jay, we're gonna kick this off. So let's go ahead and get started. You'll see us with some conversational structure of slides, but for the most part, you won't be seeing a heck of a lot of slides, and you'll just be seeing more of Jay and I. So, Jay, with the OG, the original slide that you love so much, let's kick this off.
The joke behind what Mara just said, for those of you who may not understand, is when I first started this consulting company, I wanted a slide that I would share basically each and every time I made a presentation, because I found that to me, regardless of what anybody else might think, it was so apropos to share why it's so important that we go over operational, administrative, financial, health, and guidance. And the first is the industry that we're in, medicine. Definition of medicine is, it's a science. And whether it deals with the human body or it deals with anatomy and physiology, pharmacology, but medicine, the whole scope is a science. In medical, we try to heal and the sick and the injured, but in the aesthetic, cosmetic, plastic surgery, dental market, integrative market, anti-aging, medicine is a way to keep our patients looking young and beautiful on the outside, but also most as important on the inside. It is one of the most respected professions today. And of course, people always say, oh, they're a doctor, and everybody is so impressed. And, yes, I'm impressed because we go to them to heal us, but one of the most respected because of the amount of education that you have to have, your 4 years of traditional college, medical school, an internship, a residency, a fellowship, and then you all go out and you try to increase your profession, whether it's industrial, institutional, private practice, working for somebody, and then going out on your own. And all 4 of those items lead up to the fact that medicine is a business. Now, I know people don't like, some doctors have shared.
But Jay, I thought it was a practice. I thought we were just practicing. I thought that medicine.
Yeah, you do practice, but the doctors that I go to, I sure hope that they already have it right. All right. And that they're not practicing on me. It's the practice. But medicine is a business. And if you are in business, in the practice and the scope of medicine, it is all about safety. Bar none, the top thing in our world is safety of the patient, protection of the practitioner's licenses, always one of the most important, patient safety and safety of our staff. Protection of the practitioner's licenses all the way from physician to esthetician and everywhere in between. LPN, LVN, RN, NP, PA, anyone that has a license. And then lastly, have fun and make money. If you don't practice the first couple, you will be out of business. And people have said to me, Jay, why is it a business? I said, because if you're out on your own, it's a matter of you're doing this to earn a living. Yes, you're doing this to take care of people and do what you love. But if you're not going to make money, then go work for somebody, because as Mara has politely told me many times, that being in business for yourself is the only place you'll work 80 hours a week so that you don't have to work 40 hours for somebody else.
That's true. It's true. I think there was a Shark Tank quote at one point that I just latched onto and won't let go of. So, I mean, look, I come by my love of Shark Tank, honestly, Jay. So, as you know, um, so with that though, with being a business owner, you must hire team members, and whether they are employees, whether they are independent contractors, but you need to hire people to work for you because one human being cannot do every single thing in any office, whether we're talking about a medical practice or we're talking about any other
I
business. So
try. I try.
you you try, Jay, but we finally grew when we realized that wasn't an option,
There was
right?
at one point I was doing everything myself. It was not scalable.
No, no. And so what we have found, and we've always been a remote company. So I always say people think that you and I are in the same office. We're 3.5 hours apart. We always have been 3.5 hours apart. So as long as we've had our company. So with you being in South Florida and I'm in Orlando. And so we've known about team members working remotely for a very long time. However, what we will say is that this obviously became something that changed during the pandemic. And by pandemic, I mean, 2020/2021, not necessarily during the physical illness when everybody had that. And so this is when this conversation started, and people were willing to accept more triage measures when we needed to in 2020 during shutdown, et cetera. But now that we see certain positions are truly more long-term working from home. And so there's a lot of things that we've learned as business owners. We've learned as consultants as far as the questions we've gotten along the way. So let's talk a little bit about how do we set up team members for success when transitioning them to working from home, or how do we set up a brand new team member when we bring them in and hire them and we have them working completely from home. So Jay, let's kick off this part of the conversation.
Okay. The setting it up, like anything else, whether it is a medical practice, medical/dental a practice, or whether it is a consulting company, or whether it is a vendor like Weave, the pandemic, and I'm just going to call it COVID, not COVID-19, because then you had the Delta and the Omicron and all the variants that will happen. And it is my belief that I don't know if there'll be a pandemic, but there's always going to be something in our future. And you have to have a playbook, truly a playbook.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the case that when you look at a quarterback and he comes in, he rolls up, and he looks at this little thing on his wrist? That's his playbook, the plays that are called in from the side. Now I notice that catchers in baseball have them, and they're talking back and forth to coaches and things like that. Well, business isn't any different. And you have to have a playbook that defines terms and conditions of each and every step of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, nobody ever expected COVID to happen. And when it did, there were no playbooks. And it created a problem. Now, Mara, you and I always help create playbooks, employee
Yes.
handbooks.
I was hoping you weren't going to say we always help create problems, because that's never our intention.
Well, I try to feel like I'm a problem solver.
Exactly.
All right. But the playbook can be an employee manual, an employee handbook, or even a practice handbook that covers, and I love acronyms, policies, procedures, protocols, PPP, that are clear, concise, and consistent, CCC, so that they can be altered and changed at any time. Now, look, you don't have to have this handbook and everything in writing that are 20, 30, 40 pages. The beauty of now in the cloud, you put the document in the cloud, you give your staff access to it, and you can modify it and change it at any time.
Mm-hmm.
What are the rules? What are the terms about working from home? Now, I will share with you My first condition of working from home with any staff member is before you allow somebody to do that, you have to ensure that they have the discipline to be able to do that. And look, like you said, you work from home, I work from home. People said to me, well, how do you get to work? And I said, well, most of the time I either walk or I fly. All right.
And Jay, let's be honest, we both have dogs. So sometimes, unfortunately, there is a traffic jam in the hallway. We have to, stop and pet the dog on the way to the office. So sometimes there's a traffic jam in the hallway, at least.
Yeah, many times there's a traffic jam, and you have to be disciplined. Can you work from home and really separate and segregate that office that I have that you see here is a totally separate room in my house
Mhm.
that I don't do anything in other than work because all of my technology is here, all of my computers and my files, everything is right here. And this is my safe space, actually. All right. And I don't allow my personal life and my family life to be integrated into this room. And therefore, I truly feel that when I walk into this room, I have gone to work.
Correct.
Whether it is at 11 at night, whether it's for 10 minutes because I forgot that I was supposed to do something, and I go in here and I do, and I'm in work mode all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that I'm in an exact work mode when I'm out of here, although I am performing work.
And Jay, you actually brought up a really, really great point in there. One of which you said you have all of your technology right there. So your office is set up with that technology. Now, some of that's hardware and some of that's software. So with that, we know that if your team member, and we need to check, I encourage you listening to this webinar, depending on what state you are in, if you are legally required to
Or Commonwealth.
or Commonwealth. I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you, Jay. So, state or Commonwealth, if you are legally required to purchase the equipment or if you provide a stipend for your team members that work from home as far as the actual hardware. So, do they need a laptop? Do they need a second screen? Do they need a separate phone, right? So that they don't use their personal phone, especially when we're talking about them communicating with patients from home. So definitely speak with them about that. Do they need a ring light? Do they need a separate microphone so that it's clear that when they're communicating with patients? Do they need separate headphones so that they're not putting the phone on speaker so that they can be hands free? But if there's maybe they co-share a space with a spouse or a roommate, and we want to make sure we're all HIPAA compliant. Somebody else isn't hearing what a patient is saying. So we want to make sure that there is the proper hardware, but also the proper software and the proper technology. Obviously, we are watching and you are watching this webinar. You know, we are all big fans of Weave. And so making sure that they have access to the phone and patient communication technology that allows access not just physically in the office, but that phone calls can be forwarded to a phone or available on the cloud that is available outside of the office, right? So this is something, Jay, we're very clear about.
Yeah, you should set up that remote office like it's the office that it is. It shouldn't be a side hustle room that you're always searching for something. If you would have it in your office where you have to drive and go there and get to your office or your space, then if you're working remote, your space should be set up like it's your office. Now look,
Mhm.
we have team members in Fort Lauderdale where I am, Orlando where you are, um, Las Vegas, Houston, and Los Angeles. And we're soon to go be having a team member in Cartagena, Colombia, that we're able to do things because the access to video, since you're remote, and I know the Zoom boom, a lot of people don't like it. They're all tired out and they're tired of smiling. And there was a great session last week at the MAC conference in San Diego about Zoom, all right, and how people don't like it. But I happen to love it because if I can't be in the same room with you in an office that you walk back and forth, then I want to be in a room that I feel that I can communicate with you. I've got my eye contact with you. And you've got to be able to have the people willing to accept the fact that this isn't you go to the refrigerator all the time. You decide to stop and take 20 minutes to watch TV during the day. This is your office, and it's a discipline.
Yes, we are going to take a slight break, a slight intermission, because what kind of business would we be if we didn't tell you about our own services? I want to take a minute and talk to you about the Conversion Cascade course and all that it has to offer. We want you to be trained to acquire loyal patients and boost your revenue in your aesthetic practice. Now, with our Conversion Cascade online course, you and your team will be able to master two key things important to growing your aesthetic practice and becoming successful, acquiring patients and retaining new patients. So, let's talk about a couple of things. As a step-by-step sales funnel training, the course is designed specifically to help you and your team attract more patients, convert more calls to consults, convert consults to treatments and procedures, and to keep your patients coming back for more. Not only will our Conversion Cascade course help to strengthen and develop your team's phone and sales skills in order to acquire, convert, and retain loyal patients, it will serve as a valuable onboarding training tool for every new team member that joins your practice. Yes, every new team member that joins your practice. Plus, in the course, you will receive downloadable marketing checklists, phone scripts, conversion tracking tools, and more. So, sign up for the course to get started on increasing your revenue and acquiring and retaining new and existing patients. Yes, how to acquire and how to keep them coming back for more. It only takes approximately 4 hours to complete. You can finish it at your own pace and you'll have lifetime access. Yes, that is for the lifetime of the course. And a special thank you for being our podcast listener. We'll give you 20% off. Yes, 20% off. Just enter the discount code podcast. Yes, podcast to start saving now. So click on the link in our show notes to sign up for the Conversion Cascade online course and start acquiring more patients now. How do we track each team member's productivity? And so I think there are a couple different layers of answers to this. This is a question we get a heck of a lot. So how do we track each team member's productivity? And one of the components is, again, when you're selecting your software, your phone software, and I love that I'm able to really talk about all the things we love about Weave, because sometimes I have to, when we're on stage, I'm not allowed to mention it by name, and we love Weave so much. So the other component is that with Weave and with Weave software, you're actually able to see which team member is taking which calls for how long, and listen to, we always encourage, make sure calls are recorded, make sure that if there is something in particular, that phones will be going to your home working team member, either make sure that the phone is forwarded there, make sure that they have a separate line, but make sure that you're able to track so that you know that this team member spent 60% of their time on the phone, and what percent was broken down by inbound calls, what percent was broken down into outbound calls. So if they're really making those follow-up calls to patients that haven't been back in several months, what percent was spent with that particular team member texting through Weave's HIPAA compliant texting, and utilizing that technology. And you can go in, if you see, for example, now look, we are not, as much as we would love to in an ideal world, Jay, we know that people are human and we can't expect a 100%. That means that they don't have lunch. That means that they don't ever have to use the restroom. That means that they don't get up and they stretch, right? So I'm not expecting 100%, but we've had clients where we see maybe there's only out of their day, they're only actually making phone calls about 15% of the day, and they weren't able to actually explain to practice owners what they did for the rest of the day, because their role was really a almost virtual call center role. So we want to make sure, explain, Jay, you and I love numbers. We love setting very clear expectations. How much of the day is supposed to be spent on the phone? inbound versus outbound calls, how much of the day is supposed to be spent responding to patients by text or by email. So by setting up those clear tracking methods, we're able to say, this is how we measure a team member's productivity and include a KPI, the key performance indicator. So what are those KPIs you expect that team member to hit? What did I miss in there, Jay?
No, you didn't, but it's a very difficult question to answer because no day is going to be the same. And I always have literally my week assigned out to me either the Friday before the next week or Monday. I never wake up and tackle without knowing ahead of time what I'm going to do because there's always something that's going to come into the middle of what I already had planned, another email that I look at. Look, time management and effective delegation are probably the two major keys to any staff member in business. And you may have your A and B priorities and something else jumps into it. And when that happens, you just have to triage and adjust.
Mm-hmm.
So how much is supposed to, of your workflow one day can be 80% outbound, and then another day could be 80% inbound. Example, you run a promo, all right? And that promo, for example, has tracking numbers. And then all of a sudden, that ad, that Instagram post, that whatever it was, made somebody call, all right? And you will be rocking on the phone all day answering, and then it'll slow up because it ages out very quickly unless you keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are the non-trackable items of reading emails and responding to emails that you will take more time, literally more time, tracking the things that you're doing than the effectiveness of what it is that you do. So you have to put a buffer in there. But let me hit one point.
Real quick though, Jay, I want to add into what you're saying. And because as you're talking about emails and phone calls and texts, that I just want to make sure that we've talked about both HIPAA compliant texting, but you want to make sure, and this isn't even a Weave related item, so sorry, Weave folks, but this is very, very true. Make sure that your email system is HIPAA compliant as well. So there are certain systems that were not built for work email, were not built to ever have medical practices communicating through them. AOL that's never what it was built.
Use my AOL email. Is that what you're saying?
You should not use your AOL email, Jay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But you can use that to email jokes to Pat. How about that? My amazing stepmom and your other half. So with that though, what I will say is make sure that your email system is HIPAA compliant and that the owner of the practice has access to all team members' emails. So with that, Jay, I didn't mean to chime in, but I didn't want to lose my thought.
No, you bring up that point. Everything, and I mean everything, must be HIPAA compliant. I saw another lecture over this past weekend at this conference we were at in San Diego. And, the fines for non-compliance, because folks, remember, HIPAA is not a local, city, or state issue. It is a federal issue. And the breach of protected health information is massive. The fines are massive, and they're not one bolus fine. They're individuals for each infraction. And always err on the side of precaution. If you don't know if it is or is not HIPAA compliant, don't do it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah, but ignorance of the law is never an excuse. And now you talk and you asked about tracking. So let me tell you, one of the most important things is I love technology. I learned to embrace new technology. When I first started, I was using an app called Hours Tracker, and it worked. It worked for me. And then when Mara joined me, she had access to it, and it worked for her like any other tracking software. like attorneys or anything like that that bill on time. If you don't enter it, then you can't track it. It got to be too much that Hours Tracker was not an effective thing. And I have no financial remuneration. I'm not a KOL for Monday.com. However, Monday.com is a software that we use that tracks hours, it tracks projects. I don't want to go in, this is not a promo for that. I'm just saying, but what it does is it allows us and all the team members to track and see everything you're doing, and you can restrict who has access to what, and you can put new projects in it by category, and it's easy and it can be done remotely. It's all based in the cloud and can be accessed from any cloud-based device.
So one of the things I want to say, we have about 5 or 6 minutes left with this webinar. So we have one question that we were already prepared for that we get a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and we have a leader slide with that. If you have any other questions as you're watching this webinar, please go ahead and either put them in the chat or go ahead and put them in the Q&A so that we can see those. And if you'd like, you're welcome to send us something privately, if that would make you feel a little more comfortable, but either the chat or the Q&A. So we have this other note, Jay, this question that we were fully prepared, and we have a leader slide for this, but it is about automation. The goal that we consistently have is not how do we work harder, it's how do we work smarter. We don't want everybody to be working just double, triple, quadruple time to make everybody's lives more difficult. We all only have so many hours in the day. So we look at what can we automate and what can be done by a live person. And one thing that we fully know is that, especially in today's society, people are absolutely on board with texting as a either primary or secondary option compared to phones, right? So we want to know that not just that if we need to send them a text, we can, and that sometimes you can have that from, just from live, right? Not recorded, not automated. But one of the things I want to bring up is that with Weave software, if somebody does miss a call, or if the patient calls and you have all of the lines busy at that moment, instead of it going to a voicemail, and while it could still go to a voicemail, unfortunately, patients are so accustomed to voicemails equaling black holes from other medical practices that they often don't leave a voicemail, and therefore you lose the opportunity. So with that, Weave actually has a function that when a call either is missed or when it goes to voicemail, that it can automatically text the patient with the message you would like, and that would allow the text conversation to begin automatically, in which case you can get to work scheduling a patient, calling a patient back if they have a medical question, etc. So I always like to share those automation tips that are going to make things incredibly easy. I don't necessarily recommend having an entire conversation through AI, artificial intelligence, especially when it comes to texting. It's just not personal. So for that, I would definitely say go with a live human being and a live person. But if you haven't already, meet with your Weave rep and ask them about all of the automations that Weave has worked really hard to put into place, because they are constantly working to make those changes. So I recommend meeting with Weave.
That's probably, of many of the features that I love, that's probably one of my favorite features. And let me share with you why. I at least feel that when I've called practices, and there are clients of ours that use the Weave, and I at least love knowing as a patient or anywhere that my call has literally been acknowledged. It makes me feel, and look, we're all busy, and I can accept that you were on the phone, but the automated response tells me that you're going to call me back, or I can perform additional functions. Like you said, Mara, I don't want to have my whole conversation, all right? But I love even my dentist who sends, I'm not kidding, a half a dozen appointment reminders. When you make the appointment, you get an acknowledgement. A week out, 5 days, 3 days, 2 days. People are annoyed by it. I love it because it reminds me, don't make another appointment. And of course, I have everything on my iPhone. Just be sure to weave
Hold on, Jay. Be sure to weave.
Yes. Be sure to weave into your system. It does so many things. And like Microsoft, I bet I don't use a third of Office 365. I look at it every once in a while and I go, my goodness, I didn't even know they have that. I don't need it, but I didn't know they have it.
So Jay, I think we have time for maybe one more question that we were sent. This is something that I know you and I
I
always.
don't want to stop. I want to keep on going.
I know that's just because we have so much fun together, though. So we love doing this. Quite honestly, for any of you watching, we've done this multiple times. We always love doing it. So, how do you make sure you're keeping work-life balance and when you're still working from home? So, for those of you that are choosing to continue on, how do you keep that work-life balance? And Jay, you and I do a fairly decent job, I will say, of this. Sometimes we've been known to have late night emails coming through and you can't quite turn that mental part off. But how do you do a pretty good job most of the time of keeping that balance, and when you don't, it's only because it tips further in the work scale than the home scale. So how do you keep that balance?
It is different from a business owner to a subordinate.
Mhm.
My balance as a business owner partner with you, Mara, is I kind of live and breathe my business.
Mhm.
I'm different with it. I'll be honest. I can't expect from a staff member the same balance and harmony that I do because it directly affects me more than a paycheck. All right. It is a business. So for those of you that are business owners, try to have balance and not all work. All work and no play makes Jay a dull boy. I mean, it's the old adages, but truly your staff have to have a balance and know when to cut it off and know that tomorrow is another day. And if you expect more, then that really needs to be discussed up front
Mhm.
before somebody does that at home, saying, and here's the way we are with our team. I believe get the job done. And we have single moms, we have co parenting. And to me, if you've got things that you have to do, and you have to go to a PTA meeting, you have to do something with your children, you have to take them to the doctor, you have to do whatever, enjoy that time.
Thank you all so much for joining us. And again, we are just thrilled to have been able to do this together. So, if you have any questions, of course, you are welcome to connect with us. We certainly welcome that. And we look forward to being able to do this again soon. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.